The Stoic Guide to Becoming Your True Self. 8 Steps to Inner Courage. Have you ever felt like you're wearing a costume, like you're playing a role the world praises, but deep down, it's suffocating you? That quiet emptiness inside, it's not your fault. It's the weight of a world constantly pushing you into pre-made molds, telling you who you should be, how to act, what to pursue, and what to hide. But what if there was a way home, a way back to yourself, a path toward discovering your truth and the courage to actually live it? This is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you always were underneath all the noise. In this guide, we're going to explore 8 powerful and practical steps inspired by ancient Stoic wisdom. Steps that will help you silence the noise, remove the masks, and strengthen the inner voice you've ignored for too long. We'll talk about fear, pressure, self-doubt, emotional noise, and the subtle ways we betray ourselves trying to fit in. And we'll uncover tools to change that, tools to live with clarity, strength, and authenticity. But first, I want you to make a silent commitment to yourself. Not to me, not to anyone else, just to you. If this message speaks to something real in you, go to the comments and write, "My courage starts now." Let that be your first act of truth today. That sentence is not a performance. It's a declaration, a moment of presence, a quiet rebellion, ready to begin. Let's take the first step together. Part 1, the sanctuary of the mind. Turning down the volume of the world. Imagine your mind as a sacred temple, a quiet place, solid, deep. But that temple has been invaded by voices that are not your own. Opinions, demands, comparisons, notifications flashing constantly, telling you who to be, how to live, what to chase. And in that constant noise, something precious is lost, your inner voice. How many times have you acted out of pressure, said yes out of fear, or chosen something just to avoid disappointing others? How often have you wanted to hear your heart, but the noise outside was simply too loud? We live in an age of overload. Too much information, too much distraction, too much urgency, and the louder the world becomes, the harder it is to hear yourself. The Stoics knew this, even thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, had the world at his feet. And yet, he wrote to himself daily as an act of self-listening. He said, "Withdraw into yourself. It is in your own soul that you find refuge." Epictetus, born into slavery, taught that no one is truly free unless they master themselves. And self-mastery begins with inner silence. The first step to becoming your true self is simple but rare. It's to turn down the world so you can hear your soul. Not to disappear or disconnect forever, but to build an internal space where you can meet yourself again, where you can remember who you are when no one is watching, where you can reclaim your center. This world trains you to seek validation, but the Stoics return to your mind us that real strength is built in silence. Because it's in silence that the deepest answers arise. It's where intuition speaks, where truth shows up, unfiltered and unpolished. Take 5 minutes today. No phone, no music, no one talking. Just you and the silence. Sit still, breathe slowly, and ask yourself one question. If no one were watching, what would I do differently today? Let the answer surface. You might feel awkward at first. That's okay. Silence feels strange when you're used to noise, but stay with it. You're rebuilding your sanctuary. You're clearing mental clutter built up by years of external expectations. And you're saying to the world, "I choose to hear myself first." Seneca said the mind is like a garden. If you don't choose what to plant, weeds grow on their own. These few minutes of silence, are you pulling weeds and preparing the soil? It's the beginning of a different kind of harvest. One rooted in clarity, direction, and truth. If you keep going, this moment can become a daily ritual. Wake up 5 minutes earlier. Sit in silence. Ask the same question. And over time, you'll notice something. Your mind will start to answer before you even ask. Because it recognizes the space. It trusts it. And it feels safe enough to speak. Being your true self takes courage. But before courage comes silence, because it's in silence that you notice where fear lives, where you're acting from obligation instead of choice, where the version of you is shaped, not chosen. This is the first step. And though it may seem small, it changes everything. Because without this sacred space, the other steps have no ground to stand on. Without it, you continue on autopilot, pushed by the noise. But with it, you gain your compass. You return to your center. And from that center, direction is born. Can you give yourself 5 minutes of presence? 5 minutes of listening? 5 minutes to remember you are more than the noise. You are the sanctuary that deserves to be rebuilt. Part 2. The lightness of being you. Taking off the social armor. Have you ever noticed how many versions of yourself you carry throughout the day? The version that smiles to please. The one that agrees to avoid conflict. The one that overworks to prove its worth. And by the end of the day, after wearing all those masks, what's left? Exhaustion, disconnection. That strange feeling of being present but not whole. Doing everything right but still feeling lost. This second step is about taking off the armor. Not to become vulnerable without protection, but to finally release the heavy pressure of being what others expect from you. You don't need to play a polished character in everyone else's story. You just need to be real. And being real sometimes means saying no. Admitting you don't know. Owning that you're tired, uncertain, or sad. It means, above all, stopping the constant effort to be a filtered version of yourself just to fit someone else's frame. The Stoics understood this dilemma deeply. Epictetus reminded us that we shouldn't worry about appearing wise, but about actually being wise. He taught that what's within our control is our mind, our choices, our values. And that chasing approval is handing our power to others. When you live to please, you live as a prisoner. Even if the crowd applauds you. Think about it. How many times have you held back your opinion out of fear of judgment? Worn something you didn't like just to be accepted. Agreed to things that felt wrong just to keep up the image of being easygoing. These are your armors. And the problem with armor isn't just the weight. It's that it hardens what was meant to be soft. It creates distance between you and the world. And even more dangerously, between you and yourself. Stoicism doesn't teach indifference. It teaches integrity. It invites you to act in alignment with your inner truth. To let go of the emotional dependency on how others see you. Because as long as you're shaping your soul to fit someone else's form, you'll be missing the chance to experience the lightness of being genuine. Today, notice when you feel the urge to perform or adapt just to belong. Ask yourself, is this what I really think or what's expected of me? Then try a small act of honesty. Say, I don't know when you don't. Express a real opinion, even if it's not popular. Decline an invitation if it drains you. One true moment. One real breath. That's where the lightness begins. You might be surprised. Vulnerability doesn't weaken connection, it deepens it. When you take off your armor, others feel safe enough to do the same. And that's how real relationships begin. Seneca wrote that the soul needs truth to grow, not applause. Authenticity is a form of strength. It's better to be consistent with your values than perfect in everyone else's eyes. Yes, the armor might protect you from some judgment, but it also blocks love, because no one can truly love you if they never truly see you. And no one can see you if you're always covered. You don't have to remove every layer at once. Start with one. Notice a situation where you feel like you're performing, and shift. Be more honest. Be more you. It might seem small at first, but this is how you rebuild a life rooted in truth. One real choice at a time. Being yourself doesn't mean being flawless. It means being whole. It means honoring your human complexity, your doubts, your strength, your contradictions. It's about removing the excess to return to the essential, and the essential is always light. Remember, the armor might block the blow, but it also blocks the embrace. And maybe what you need most right now is not more defense, but more truth, more softness, more of you. Part 3. The rebellion of being genuine, defying the pressure to conform. Being genuine in a world that constantly pushes you to be a filtered version of yourself is a quiet rebellion. That's why so many people choose to shrink themselves, to stay silent, to follow along. It's easier to drift with the current than swim against it. Easier to copy than to question. Safer to appear than to truly be. But the cost of that comfort is your truth. It's the price of living life on autopilot, checking all the boxes while slowly forgetting who you are. You fit in, but you don't feel at home. You follow the path, but lose your sense of direction. This third step invites you to rebel. Not with noise, but with clarity. Not with rage, but with alignment. This isn't about resisting everything or being contrarian for the sake of it. It's about quietly, but firmly saying, I will not betray myself to be accepted. It's about refusing to live according to a script you never wrote. Marcus Aurelius said, the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. And authentic thoughts don't come from imitation. They come from reflection, from silence, from having the courage to live according to your values, even when it means going against the flow. Look around. How many people are bending themselves into shapes that don't fit, hiding their passions, suppressing their voice, living small in exchange for approval? That's not belonging, that's surrender. And you don't have to keep playing that role. You can write your own narrative. You can choose something else. Think of something you've avoided doing out of fear of judgment, wearing what you love, pursuing something that excites you, speaking up when something doesn't sit right. Now do it, not for attention, not for applause, but as an act of self-respect, as a declaration that you are no longer a copy of who the world wants you to be. You are becoming a reflection of who you already are. And that's where the rebellion begins. You might notice something unexpected. Being genuine doesn't isolate you. It attracts the right people. People who resonate with your truth, who see you, not for the image you project, but for the presence you carry. And that connection is rare, and it's real. The Stoics never lived to impress. They lived to evolve. Epictetus reminded us that admiration isn't the goal, integrity is. And integrity takes courage. Courage to be honest. Courage to choose the unpopular answer. Courage to say, this is me, even when no one understands. Yes, living with authenticity may cost you a few nods of approval. But living without it costs you your peace, your identity, your self-respect. And that is the loneliest kind of loss. The kind where you wake up and don't recognize who you've become, where you look in the mirror and only see the expectations of others reflected back. Being genuine doesn't start with grand gestures. It begins in quiet, simple moments. One sentence you speak from the heart. One decision you make for yourself. One pause where you choose to be real instead of pleasing. These are not small acts. They are revolutions. They are the building blocks of a life that finally feels like yours. Remember, the current of conformity is strong, but not unstoppable. It gains power when you stay silent, and loses strength every time you speak your truth. Every time you take a step that reflects your values. Every time you choose to be who you are, not who they want you to be. So I ask you, what small act of rebellion can you take today? What honest gesture will honor your identity? It might feel insignificant now, but this is how freedom begins. This is how you reclaim your voice. This is how you finally come home to yourself. Part 4. The invisible chains, breaking through fear. Fear takes many forms. Sometimes it shows up as silence, as delay, as a well-dressed excuse. Other times it wears the mask of perfectionism, self-doubt, or that lingering voice that says, "You're not ready." But most of the time, fear is so well hidden that we don't even realize it's making our decisions for us. We just feel stuck, paralyzed, like something's holding us back, and we can't name what. This fourth step is one of the most powerful. It's where you begin to see the chains that are keeping you in place. And the truth is, those chains aren't made of steel. They're made of thoughts. What if I fail? What if they laugh at me? What if I'm not enough? Thoughts that have repeated so many times they've started to feel like facts, even though you've never tested most of them. The Stoics knew how fear worked. They understood that fear isn't defeated with force, it's disarmed with clarity. That's why they practiced something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. They would visualize the worst-case scenario, not to attract it, but to face it, to reduce its power, to realize that even if the worst happened, they would survive. They would endure. They would adapt. Have you noticed how avoiding your fear only makes it stronger? The more you avoid something, the more terrifying it becomes, because you're feeding it silence, feeding it imagination, feeding it power. But when you look at it directly, it shrinks. It stops being this dark, shapeless force and becomes something real, something manageable. Choose a fear that has been holding you back. Maybe it's the fear of speaking up, of starting something new, of being seen. Write it down. Be honest. Now ask yourself, what is the absolute worst that could happen if this fear came true? And then, how would I handle that? How would I get through it? You'll probably find that you already have the strength, the resources, or the creativity to deal with far more than you give yourself credit for. Seneca said we suffer more in imagination than in reality. How many sleepless nights have you spent worrying about things that never happened? How many opportunities have you missed because you feared rejection that never came? How many times have you stopped before you even tried? These are the invisible chains, and every time you believe them, they tighten. But here's something you might never have been told. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action despite fear. It's taking the step with shaky legs, speaking the truth with a trembling voice, choosing progress even when your heart is racing. It's not about being fearless. It's about refusing to let fear be the one steering your life. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be invincible. It invites you to be conscious, to recognize what's holding you down, and to take responsibility for your freedom. True freedom isn't living without fear. It's living without letting fear make your decisions. Maybe today you still feel chained, but now you hold the key. It's in your willingness to pause, to question, to challenge the beliefs that no longer serve you. That inner shift is the first crack in the armor fear wears. So I ask you, what fear can you face today? Not with force, but with honesty. What story have you told yourself for too long that you're now ready to rewrite? You don't have to break every chain at once. Just loosen one link, take one step, breathe through one uncomfortable moment, and in that act of bravery, fear loses power, and you gain it. Part 5. The Wisdom of Imperfection. Finding strength in every mistake. We're taught early on to hide our mistakes, to treat failure as something shameful, to see imperfection as weakness. But what if the opposite is true? What if your strength is actually built in the moments you stumble? What if your greatest clarity comes not from always being right, but from being honest when you're wrong? This fifth step is about letting go of the illusion of perfection and stepping into something far more powerful. Growth. You weren't born to be flawless. You were born to be real, and real includes falling, includes learning, includes trying again. Seneca wrote that to err is human, but to reflect on our errors is what makes us wise. The Stoics didn't chase some unattainable ideal. They understood that life is a process of refinement, that every failure is information, that every mistake is an opportunity to return to alignment. And when you embrace this perspective, failure becomes part of the path, not a detour, not a disqualification, not a reason to hide. Think about how often you punish yourself for not getting it right, how often you replay your regrets, how often you let a single misstep define your worth. But that voice in your head isn't truth. It's a pattern, a habit, and habits can be changed. Mistakes aren't walls, they're mirrors. They reflect where you were unconscious, where you followed fear instead of truth, where you chose comfort over courage. And when you look without shame, those same mistakes transform. They become lessons, signals, maps. Think of something you wish you had done differently. Now ask yourself, what did I learn? Write it down, honor it, and say to yourself, I am not this mistake. I am the person who grew because of it. That single shift can change everything. Because when your relationship with failure changes, so does your future. You start to take risks again. You allow yourself to evolve. You stop fearing the fall because you trust your ability to rise. The Stoics didn't aim to live without flaws. They aimed to live with awareness, to use each experience as fuel, to stop hiding from themselves. And when you stop hiding, you become powerful in a different way. Not because everything goes perfectly, but because nothing can keep you from growing. We live in a culture obsessed with achievement, but Stoicism reminds us that the real measure of success is progress. Progress toward integrity, progress toward consistency, progress toward peace. And progress isn't linear. Sometimes it means making the same mistake twice before the lesson truly lands. Sometimes it means forgiving yourself for things you didn't know how to handle at the time. So the next time you stumble, remember, you are not broken. You are becoming. You are learning. You are refining who you are through experience. And there's nothing weak about that. In fact, it's one of the strongest things you can do. Honor the imperfect parts of your story. They are what make you human. They are what make you relatable. They are where your strength lives. And when someone sees you owning your flaws instead of hiding them, they'll be reminded that they can do the same. That's how we grow together. Not by pretending to be perfect, but by walking forward with honesty and letting every mistake become a stepping stone on the path back to who we truly are. Part 6. The poison of comparison. Celebrating your own journey. Comparison is a subtle poison. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It creeps in during moments of doubt or exhaustion. It hides behind perfect images, public praise, filtered lives. And before you know it, you're measuring your life with someone else's ruler. You start devaluing your progress simply because it doesn't look like theirs. This 6th step is about coming back to yourself. It's time to stop staring at someone else's garden and start tending your own. It's time to remember that your path is yours for a reason. Your challenges are unique. Your pace is sacred, and your growth cannot be compared to anyone else's timeline. Marcus Aurelius said the soul remains unshaken when it stops caring about what others are doing. Comparison pulls you out of presence. It blinds you to what's working. It steals your gratitude and turns it into anxiety. It convinces you that you're late when you're exactly on time. Because growth isn't a race. It's not measured by speed or applause. It's measured by honesty, by consistency, by alignment. Think about how often you've felt behind after seeing someone else succeed. How many times you questioned your worth because their success looked bigger or faster. How many wins you dismissed because someone else's looked more glamorous. But that's not truth. That's distortion. And it's one of the fastest ways to forget your own power. When you catch yourself comparing, pause, breathe, and come back to what's real. List 3 things in your journey that you're genuinely grateful for. Not what looks good to others. What feels meaningful to you. It could be emotional progress, an internal shift, a moment of courage, a habit you've changed. Celebrate those things, because they're yours. And that's what makes them sacred. Everyone you admire carries invisible battles. They have doubts, fears, regrets, just like you. You're seeing their highlight reel, their curated moments, their surface, not their full story. And even if you could see everything, comparison would still be unfair. Because you're not here to replicate someone else's purpose. You're here to live your own. Seneca reminded us not to envy, but to learn. Use others as mirrors for inspiration, not as proof of your inadequacy. Learn what speaks to you. Observe what moves you. But don't forget your own voice, your own journey, your own depth. Your path has its own rhythm, and you bloom when your roots are ready, not before. Trust that. You don't need to rush into someone else's season. You're in yours for a reason. And peace comes when you stop trying to match someone else's timeline. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're becoming. And sometimes becoming looks like stillness, like quiet, like invisible progress that no one applauds, but you feel it. And that's what matters. So today, celebrate not just the visible victories. Celebrate the days you kept going, the moments you didn't give up, the times you chose alignment over approval. That's success too. And I ask you, what part of your journey deserves to be honored today? What step have you taken that deserves to be acknowledged not by others but by you? This is how comparison loses its power, when you stop measuring your life in borrowed metrics and start honoring the sacredness of your own pace. Part 7. The strength of depth. Be the calm, not the storm. Life is full of storms, disagreements, unpredictable days, sharp words, emotional triggers. And when we don't know how to anchor ourselves, we get swept away. We become reactive. We mirror the chaos around us. We live on the surface, tense, agitated, easily shaken. But this 7th step invites you to go deeper, to stop being the surface that crashes with every wave, and instead, become the ocean floor. Still, rooted, unmoved, because your real power doesn't come from controlling the storm. It comes from controlling your response to it. Marcus Aurelius spoke often of the inner citadel, a place inside that nothing external can touch. That's where your calm lives, not in avoiding difficulty, but in remembering who you are in the middle of it. When someone yells, your calm is a choice. When your plans fall apart, your breath is a choice. When a thought spirals, your attention is a choice. You don't have to react to everything. You don't have to absorb everything. You don't have to turn every moment into a battlefield. There's a stillness in you that can't be taken, but you must return to it. Protect it. Strengthen it. Because the world will try to pull you out of yourself, through urgency, through noise, through emotional bait. But you can learn to pause, to listen inward, to create space between trigger and reaction. And in that space, you choose your response. You reclaim your power. The Stoics weren't cold, they were clear. They didn't ignore emotions, they understood them. And they practiced the discipline of responding from depth, not impulse. That's emotional mastery, not suppressing, but observing, not resisting, but redirecting. The next time you feel your emotions building like a storm, don't fight them. Don't run from them. Acknowledge them. Name them. Then watch them, like clouds passing through the sky. They're real, but they're not permanent. They don't define you. They don't own you. You are not the storm. You are the sky it moves through. Being the calm doesn't mean being passive. It means being deliberate, being grounded, being so deeply connected to your inner values that nothing outside can pull you away from them. This kind of strength doesn't make noise. It doesn't demand attention, but it radiates presence. It transforms the energy of a room, because people can feel it. And more importantly, you can feel it. You can feel when you are no longer at the mercy of everything around you. When your peace is not a reaction, but a baseline. So I ask you, where in your life are you being pulled into the storm? What would it look like to step back, to breathe, to return to your depth? Your calm is not weakness, it's discipline, it's protection. It's your strongest form of influence in a world that never stops spinning. Part 8. The currency of now, the value of living each moment. Time is the only currency we can never get back. We spend it with every decision, every yes, every silence, every delay. And yet, we treat it like it's endless. We act like we'll always have more chances, more tomorrows, more time to start being who we really are. But the Stoics lived differently. They walked through life with urgency, not in haste but in awareness. They reminded themselves daily of their mortality, not to live in fear, but to live on purpose, memento mori. Remember you will die, not as a dark mantra, but as a call to presence, a call to meaning. This 8th step is about remembering that every moment is an investment, every thought you give energy to, every conversation you engage in, every place you spend your attention. You are spending your life, right now, and once it's gone, it doesn't return. How much of your time is being stolen by things that don't align with your values? How many hours are traded for approval, comfort, or distractions that leave you empty? How many days have passed in autopilot, doing what's expected, not what's meaningful? This isn't a guilt trip, it's a wake-up call, because you still have time, you're breathing, you're here. And that means you have power. Power to shift your priorities, power to create moments that matter, power to live today as if it were your only guarantee, because it is. The Stoics asked one simple question again and again. Is this essential? Not just in work, but in words, in energy, in worry, in how they showed up to life. They didn't want to live a long life. They wanted to live a full one, a deliberate one, a life that reflected their core. Look at your day. Where are you pouring your attention? Are you feeding your purpose, or just your habits? Are you honoring your values, or just surviving your schedule? Are you being present, or just passing time? Your time is your life. And when you spend it with intention, everything changes. Joy deepens, conversations become real. Even the smallest acts feel rich with presence. That's the difference between existing and living. So today, before you say yes, pause. Ask, is this how I want to spend a piece of my life? Is this aligned with who I am becoming? Is this a reflection of my truth? Because every yes has a cost, and every no has power. You're not behind. You're not too late. You just have to begin again. Right now, not tomorrow, not when it's perfect, not when others approve. Now. Because this moment is real, and it's yours. Spend it with care. Spend it with purpose. Spend it as if your life depends on it, because it does. Being yourself is not a finish line. It's a daily practice, a quiet return, a series of small conscious choices to live from the inside out. It's the courage to protect your mind, to let go of your masks, to welcome imperfection, to stop running, to begin living as if your time actually matters. The truth is, no one can walk this path for you. No one else knows the rhythm of your soul. Only you can reclaim your voice, your peace, your depth. And that's not selfish. That's sacred. Because the world doesn't need more copies. It needs people who are fully alive. People rooted in truth, in clarity, in presence. These 8 steps are not rules. They're invitations. Invitations to pause, to reflect, to shift, to come back to yourself when the world pulls you away. And if even one of these ideas moved something in you, then something inside is ready to grow. You don't have to change everything overnight. You just have to begin. Begin by listening, by letting go, by choosing alignment over performance, one honest step at a time. If this message brought you clarity or strength, let it ripple, like the first breath after holding everything in. Leave a like so this reaches someone else who needs it. And subscribe if you haven't yet, because this journey is just beginning. Now go to the comments and share. Which of the 8 steps spoke the loudest to you today? Which one are you ready to practice, not for perfection but for truth? And before you go, in our next video, we'll go even deeper into what it means to truly let go of the things that drain you, the thoughts that trap you, the burdens that no longer belong to you, so you can make room for peace, for clarity, for the kind of freedom that doesn't depend on anything outside you. Until then, be strong, be present, be real, and most of all, be yourself.